City Lights is a 1931 silent comedy written, directed, produced, and composed by the great Charlie Chaplin himself. So this movie came out in the year 1931 and it was praised globally by critics, audiences. It opened in January 30th of that year, and when the premiere happened in Los Angeles, a ton of people were there. Like the Warner Brothers were there, Carl Lammel of Universal Studios, Albert Einstein. It was a global phenomenon, and it was perfect for Charlie Chaplin. So you're probably asking what this movie is about. So this movie is about Charlie Chaplin's character, the Tramp. He is a silent character. He does not speak a single word of dialogue. And he's someone that is messing up in the city. He doesn't know where to find work because he actually has feelings for a blind girl who is very poor. And once the Tramp has these type of feelings and affections for her, he decides to impress her by making sure that he is a rich man. And the funny thing is that since she is blind, she doesn't know that he is just an ordinary tramp, like this character. And how is this movie, if you may ask? This movie is phenomenal. I love this movie so much. It has clever humor, a lot of funny jokes, great slapstick comedy, and you have to give it to Charlie Chaplin himself because this is literally one of his most important movies that he's ever made in his career. And you're probably wondering, why is this movie so important to him? To give y'all some history, the 1930s was a time when movie makers were obsessed with changing their movies into sound. They wanted to incorporate dialogue and sound to the actors so that they can speak their lines through a microphone. But when Charlie Chaplin was seeing this change, he resisted the urge to make his character, the Tramp, a person that would speak dialogue. And he said that that's not a good idea because my character, the Tramp, was made for something special, for silent cinema. And so while he was making this movie, he had to be very creative and demanding to make sure that his character would live on and that he could still tell a movie that has a lot of cohesive messages and a coherent story throughout the usage of physical action and comedy. The best part about this movie is that it just goes on and on and on and on. The action progresses throughout each and every act, and you cannot help but just laugh at the amount of slapstick comedy that Charlie Chaplin incorporated. And one of the best things about this movie is that you really do see a plot and story happening through the actions of the Tramp. Whenever he is slipping or falling down or performing daily activities that require comedy or physical action, you cannot help but just realize how ridiculous everything was for the character of the Tramp. And it's really hilarious seeing how Charlie Chaplin does this. And what I also really enjoyed was how he incorporated specific sound effects at the right time whenever he did certain actions, whenever he's sipping up spaghetti or whenever he falls in somewhere. It's just genius by Chaplin. And now I shall present to you how sound was used in the film. Please enjoy. Yes, Charlie Chaplin also composed the soundtrack for this movie. Although he was not considered to be, like John Williams or Bernard Herrmann, who actually write their own songs, Chaplin had an orchestral arranger write his songs with him. His name was Arthur Johnson, and what would happen was that Charlie Chaplin would whistle some tunes, and Arthur Johnson would write those tunes into notes and to measures. And once the music came into Charlie Chaplin's head, he whistled the tune for City Lights, and Arthur Johnson began to just incorporate his whistles into like a theme tune that can eventually become a motif for the characters of the film. And Chaplin had early experience with film soundtracks when he was working in the British music halls and even in his early silent comedies of the 1920s. So just me telling y'all this about what Charlie Chaplin did, it's just really genius, and it's the talent of Chaplin that we just have to kind of, consider and celebrate. The biggest takeaway that I have gotten from watching City Lights is that you can be as creative as you want when you make a movie. And that's one of the coolest things that Chaplin has influenced me to do, because when Chaplin made City Lights, when he started shooting the film, he actually began it without even writing a first draft of the script. He thought that with his creative liberties of silence and action, he could just make a movie with just action to carry the plot and the story. And with how the turnout was for City Lights and how big of a hit it was, I'm just very glad that a film like this exists from 1931. And this movie has been tributed with a lot of, references. I mean, look at the SpongeBob movie with SpongeBob and Patrick singing Now That We're Men, and then they pay tribute to the boxing scene. Or if you look at the Goofy Goober clock in the movie, it has, a mustache and a hat that is similar to Charlie Chaplin in The Tramp. That is literally how much I love this movie. I hope you get to check it out because this is a creative movie and it's the definition of what creativity needs to be. Therefore, City Lights gets an April Fool's of 10 out of 10. And guys, thank you so much for watching. I had a blast making this review. This was my April Fool's Day for y'all since this is a comedy by Charlie Chaplin. I'm very glad I made this, and please stay in tune for more videos as usual. Happy April Fool's Day, everybody.